Hey everyone, welcome back to OmegaCodex. It's been a while since I've posted a video here. So first of all, I hope all of you are doing well. Over the last year or two, a lot has changed in software development world. AI is no longer something we are just reading about or watching demos of or experimenting with once in a while. It is slowly becoming part of how developers write code, understand existing code, debug problems, and even think through about implementation ideas. But at the same time, many developers are still at the beginning of this journey. Some have not really tried AI tools for development yet. Some are using ChatGPT or Claude separately and then applying those changes or suggestions manually into their code. Some may have GitHub Copilot installed in VS Code but are not fully sure what all these options mean or how to use them properly. And honestly, that is completely fine. So in this video, I want to keep things simple and practical. We will start with GitHub Copilot inside VS Code. We'll also look at basic options available. We'll understand what these options actually mean. And then we will focus mainly on agent option because that's where the whole world is right now. And it's been a game changer in AI-driven development. And that's where Copilot starts becoming more than just autocomplete. So towards the end, I'll also briefly touch on how you can create your own specialized agents that can help you with your workflow. So think of this video as a simple starting point, not an advanced AI coding session. It is just something simple to get you started using Copilot inside VS Code, that too with more confidence. So let's get started. Before we start using Copilot, let's quickly look at what we need. So we'll need Visual Studio Code, a GitHub account, and access to GitHub Copilot. Now, depending on your account or your organization's account, Copilot may be available for you. If not, you can check the options available on github.com or even inside VS Code. Now once you have VS Code installed, go to Extensions tab and search for Copilot or GitHub Copilot. And then you will find an extension called GitHub Copilot Chat. So if it's not already installed, you can go ahead and install it and sign up for GitHub Copilot for free. Now, once your sign-in is complete on VS Code with your GitHub account, the Copilot should start showing up in the VS Code editor. Now, you may see it as inline options. For example, it is showing up as an inline suggestion by itself that it is suggesting you may want to probably implement a health endpoint. So if I just say health or I just press tab, it would just add this. Now, before we look at all these options, remember one thing. Copilot is not just autocomplete. Autocomplete is just one part of it. Copilot can also help you understand code, edit your code, generate changes, and even work on tasks using the agent option. And that is what we will explore next. So let's see what are the main ways you can use it. Many people install Copilot and only use a small part of it. So let's look at the first option, which was the inline suggestion. And as I showed it before, when you type something, it tries to understand what you are trying to implement and then gives you suggestions. And this is what many people think of when they hear Copilot. As you type the code, it suggests the next line or sometimes the full code block. For example, I can try writing something like get by ID. And then it is suggesting me how to get it and also give me a code which I could go on with. And if I'm fine with the code, I can accept it. If not, I can go ahead and change. But then the time I would spend on typing that 5-6 lines of code is just saved. So this is useful for small repetitive code, boilerplate, simple helper methods, or even continuing a pattern that already exists in your file or in your project. And as I said, it is only part of Copilot. And the next option, which quite visible in the window, is the chat option you have. And here in chat, you can see something called as ask. Ask is also available on the editor. Yeah, open inline chat. So you can ask here. And ask is the option where you ask questions as the term suggests. So for example, I could say explain this code, and it would try to understand the code and then give an explanation about it. Other things you could ask is like you're seeing some error, you can ask what is this error about, or you can select a part of code and ask how I can improve that part of code. So if it has better suggestions about improving the code, it can help you with that. Now we have an output from Copilot where it is explaining this particular code, what each method means. So it is helpful when you want to try to understand some code quickly, or if you're finding it complex to understand, or you're not able to figure out the reasoning behind the code. It is helpful in such cases. And it can also help you, or rather get help without directly changing any code. Now another option you can work with is called plan. Now plan again helps you in planning a change. So you can tell what you are expecting to do and ask it to create a plan. In that cases, it tries to understand your question and tries to create a plan which you can implement. I'll remove this health endpoint, and I could just say something basic as plan to add a simple get help point, and let's see what it does. So it went by the previous context of it, but then it didn't make any change. It just said that endpoint already exists, and then it is telling me what is there. But then it said no changes are needed. Would you like to extend it by adding uptime version dependency checks instead? So when I said start implementation, it started working on it, which I accidentally clicked on it. So anyways, let's maybe stop at this point because I wasn't intending it to continue with that. So we will stop at this and undo any changes it made. Start with the next option, that is agent, which now it's selected as it started with the implementation earlier. Some of the options which appear here, and the first one is the models. So which all models are available for you. So whatever subscription I have, I don't have the premium models. Usually those are available only for organizational licenses or if you have a higher plan. So I have the basic pro plan, and I have a limited set of models which I can use. So each model gives you different capability, and your output improves based on the higher models you select, of course. But then in general, I have found Claude Sonnet decent enough to work with. So is GPT 5.3. In some cases, even Gemini works good. But then yeah, you can experiment with different models and see how that works with you. So now let's move on to the option we want to focus, and that is agent. So agent is different because you're giving Copilot a task, and not just you're asking a question or doing a small edit. Now, for example, instead of saying create a function, we could say like add a health check endpoint to this API, and then update the required files and tell me what has changed. Now, in the agent mode, the Copilot can look at your workspace, decide which files may be relevant, suggest changes, and help you move through the task step by step. So a simple way to remember this is like inline suggestions helps you type, and chat helps you when you want to ask something, and agent helps you when you want to get a task done. And the plan helps you in planning a change. Now, once you understood when to use which option, Copilot becomes much less confusing. So now that we have seen the agent option, let's talk about how to actually work with it. Now, this is important because agent mode is not just about typing a prompt and accepting whatever comes back. So the quality of the result depends a lot on how you give the task, and a vague prompt will usually give you a vague result. And so when you use the agent mode, you try to give it 4 things. The first is the task, what I want the Copilot to do. Second is the context, so what the project is, or some context about the change, and what existing patterns it should follow, or any other things it should take care of. Third is constraints, so should it keep the change simple, should it avoid adding any new packages, should it update tests, so those kind of things. And fourth is the expectation. Like, do I want it to explain the changes before applying them? Or do I want it to show the files it plans to modify? So instead of writing something very broad, like add a health check endpoint, writing something more specific gives you a better result. Like add a simple get health endpoint to this .NET API. Follow the existing project structure. Do not add any new packages unless required. And then return status, app name, and current UTC. Then explain the files you will change before applying this change. Now, this kind of prompt gives Copilot a much better starting point. And once it responds, the next steps is not to blindly accept it, but first read the plan, then check the files it wants to change, and then maybe review the difference. Then run it, test the output. If something doesn't look right, guide it. For example, you can say, keep this change only to program.cs, or say that do not introduce any new classes for this, or maybe add a simple test for this endpoint. Now, this is the right way to think about agent mode. Not one prompt and done, but you give a task, review, guide, and verify. Now, let's try this with a simple example. So what I have here is a minimal API.NET project. And for this demo, we'll just keep the task intentionally small. So as we were playing with the health endpoint, so let's continue with that and just add a simple health check endpoint. And the endpoint should be a get endpoint with /health as the path, and it should return few basic details about status, application name, and current UTC time. So now I open the Copilot chat and I will select the agent option, which is already selected, and then probably I'll put the prompt. Now, instead of giving a very vague prompt like add a health check endpoint, I will try to give a more structured prompt. So like add a simple get health endpoint, and then I list out my requirements, what it want to do. And then just let's try it out. So here I've said like what the requirements are: to return status, application name, follow the existing project structure, keep the implementation simple, do not add any new health packages unless required, and explain the change before applying the changes. Well, it was not very obedient about it to start with. It did give me a plan, but then it anyways went ahead and created the change. What we did here, we were not just asking it to write some code. We gave it a specific task. We said our expected behavior and constraints and the way it should respond. Here, it didn't exactly go how we planned. So it did make changes which are simple, but then it didn't wait for us to give our confirmation. So maybe let's try it out again. For now, I'll just undo these changes and we'll start a new session, put it, and we'll just maybe be a little stricter about it. Do not make any changes before my approval, and I'll make it a separate statement. So let's see how this goes. So now, since we changed the wording a bit, now it has provided me details about what changes that it is going to make, and no new files, no new get packages, same simple response. So I can say yes, proceed. So if you see here what we did, we were not just asking Copilot to write some code. We were giving it a task, an expected behavior, the constraints, and the way we wanted to respond. Now, in the previous attempt, obviously it didn't go exactly how we planned, but then we learn it through trial and errors and see how things are working and as per our liking and our working patterns. So in here also, when the plan was okay, I made it I allowed it to make the change. And then after that, we will review the difference before accepting it. And this is very important. Even if the task is simple, do not make it a habit to accept changes blindly. Review what has changed, understand why it changed it, and then accept it. Once the change is applied, we should also verify it. So we can run the API and call the health check endpoint. And if the response comes back as with the status, application, and timestamp, then the task is complete. And this is a basic agent workflow. Give it a clear task, review the plan, review the change, and verify the output. So maybe the change is simple here. So maybe just run it and see. So if we open the browser and we help, it gives us the response. So one thing I want to highlight here again is how we work with Copilot. We did not just type a prompt and blindly accept the result. We gave it a clear task. We reviewed its plan. We checked the files it want to modify, and we reviewed the difference. And then we verified the endpoint by running the application. This is the habit you should build when you're working with agent mode. Think of Copilot as your assistant, not as the final authority. Sometimes it will generate exactly what you need. Sometimes it will overcomplicate a simple change. Sometimes it may add a new package, create extra files, or changes something that you didn't ask for. That doesn't mean that the tool is useless. It is simply meaning that you need to guide it. For example, if Copilot creates too many files for a simple change, you can say, keep this simple and only update a certain files. Now, if adds a package you don't want, you can also guide it and say that, do not add any packages. Or if you know what packages to be added, you can specify that, okay, use only these packages or use only these patterns. If the response format is not what you expected, you can always change or ask it to update. This is where many beginners make mistake. They expect one prompt to give that perfect answer. But working with agent mode is usually a loop. You give it a task, Copilot suggests an approach, and you review it, then you correct it if it is needed, and then you verify the final result. The more you clearly guide it, the better the output becomes. So when you start using agent mode, don't worry about writing a perfect prompt from day one. Start simple, review carefully, give feedback, and slowly you will understand how to get better results from it. Once you become comfortable with the agent mode, you don't have to use Copilot only as one general assistant for everything. You can start creating more specialized agents for your own workflow. For example, you can create a code review agent. Its job will not be to create or write new code. Its job will be to review your changes and look for things like readability issues, missing validations, error handling gaps, or unnecessary complexity. Or you may create a planning agent. Its job would be to help you break down a feature into smaller implementation steps. Or maybe a testing agent. Its job could be to look at your code and suggest useful test cases. The idea is simple. Instead of explaining your expectations again and again in every prompt, you can define focused role once and reuse it. In VS Code, it can be done using custom agents. For this video, I don't want to go too deep into this setup because the main goal today is to help you just get started. That is very simple to create. You just have to click on the settings icon in the chat window. Then you get to the agent customization window. And there are different options here. You can click on agents and you can either generate an agent or you can come here and select the new agent option. So there are two options here, workspace and user. Workspace means the agent is specific to the project workspace. Here you can also create a user level agent where it applies at your user level and is accessible across projects. So let's for now create an agent for this workspace, and it gives you two options. Generally, sometimes it would just give you .github. If you want to work with Claude, then you can go with the .claude folder. Rest with using Copilot, let's stick to GitHub agents folder. And here I would just call it simple code review agent. And then you have to mention the content of it. So this is just a simple instruction where this file defines the behavior of the custom agent. We are just telling it what role it should play, what should it focus on, and what it should do, what it should avoid from doing. There's something called as tools, which we can give it access to, so that what the agent will have access to. So it lets you read. Maybe let's select read. We don't want it to do any edit. Let's maybe also give it search and to do task and give VS Code commands as well. For now, I'm not just going into specifics of it. We just want the agent to be able to access our code base and use it. And that's it. Now if we close this and we come to the project, we can see the agent being created here, and this is part of your repository and you can use it when you're working with your project. And once this is created, if you go to this agent selection option, you can see the agent in as one of the options in the drop down. If it doesn't appear, just restart your project and restart your VS Code and it should come up in the workspace. So now I can simply select this agent. Maybe I'll go to a new session, select this agent, and then ask it that can you review the health endpoint change. This is not a perfect code review agent, but the idea is to explain you how to create custom agents, and then you can iterate through it and see how it is working, what modifications it needs. Over the time, what you would understand what things it is missing, and then you can start working on it. So you can make one of your agents maybe for code review or for writing test cases suggestions. One could be for documentation, one could be planning a feature. So start small, create one simple agent, use it few times, then adjust the instructions based on the output you get. Like here, we ran the review agent and then it gave us few comments. Like read from a readability, it gave us suggestion that maybe create a named record as a health response instead of giving an anonymous object, and then a couple of other comments. So that was a practical starting point for using GitHub Copilot inside VS Code. In this video, we just started from the basics. We looked at what we need to get started. We understood the main Copilot options inside VS Code: inline suggestions, chat or ask, and agent mode and plan mode. Now then we focused on the agent mode and used it for small tasks where we were adding a simple health check endpoint. More importantly, we also saw how to work with an agent properly. Just to reiterate, do not blindly accept everything, but we give clear instructions or tasks, we review the plan, we check the differences, guide it through the output, and then verify the result. And finally, we also created a small custom agent, a simple code reviewer agent, so that we can start shaping Copilot for our own work. Now, if you are just starting with AI-assisted development, don't try to learn everything at once. Start with one small task. Use Copilot for that. Review what it does. Ask follow-up questions. And also slowly build confidence. That is the best way to start. In the next video, we'll go a level deeper and look at how to write better prompts for Copilot. Prompts that give you more useful, more predictable results. If this video helped you, do subscribe to the channel and give a thumbs up to this video. And as always, stay curious, keep learning, keep building, and I'll see you in the next one. Adios.